right? But if you know enough and have enough background and you can estimate things, like even just like even underwriting deals, I talked about, man, I remember talking about this with another guy, another high level investor. He's like, I feel what it always comes down to is like people who can estimate the rehab. Because if you can estimate the rehab and
Yeah.
actually deliver it, like that's the biggest variable. And that's what makes a lot of deals. People pass on a lot of deals because of that unknown, right?
Right. Right, yeah, and especially if you have like the GC background, you can just walk into a deal or a house and just start picking it apart, like, oh, that's got to go, you got to fix this, that. So I completely agree with you, Casey. Just knowing how to evaluate the rehab budget, it can really help save a ton of deals. Or, if you're just lackluster with it, you can lose a lot of deals that way because people don't want to take the risk on something that they don't know how much they'd have to put into it. So I completely agree with you, man. Completely agree. Yeah. But one
Yeah. So I
other
think,
question. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, just to wrap that up, man, I think I would, yeah. So I would probably recommend did it again. Yeah. Go work some sort of project management and then roll that into starting to doing some marketing and doing off market deals. Learn how to learn, say, if you could learn sales and construction, you got the perfect blend.
Yeah. Because if you can, like you said, if you can manage a team of contractors, I mean, there's not much else that could be like could give you any other like different stuff to handle than
Mhm.
that kind of work. So it's a very good point. But you're a father, four boys, to my knowledge, right? I think that's correct. And I know you talk about investing as a team, like with your family and with partners and couples and having them do it. What do you think is the best way to do that without, straining your relationship or having those like you working together tiffs, that you can't separate work from actually being at home.
It's not easy and it's
Yeah,
still far from perfect working on it. Like it's an evolution, if anything.
yeah.
And if somebody thinks they're going to come in and be able to perfectly manage it, yeah, I don't think it's possible. But if you continue to
Reset
be
your
respectful,
expectations, right?
yeah, exactly. But I think one nice thing I have now that I didn't when I was working in oil and gas is at least I get to choose when I get to be there. And I've gotten really good at it. I mean, Pace has invested a ton of time to show us how to time block and time plan. I think if you just it really just comes down to that. Like and I'm still battling it, right? Like I'm a more like let's go doer. Like let's just start doing the work versus now let's plan it and let's be more strategic. And I think as I get better and better at that, I'm having more and more more and more quality of life and strengthening relationships and yeah, I think that's what it's all about is if you can really time block and plan out things and just when you're there and just being all in on whatever you're working on, right? And I
Right.
don't know, still some people, yeah, I feel like I'm able to at least put down the phone at different times of the day and not be on it, right? And just
Mhm.
be all in on that. And then setting expectations with whoever you work with, your team, be like, hey, I'm not going to be picking it up. And honestly, I've gotten better to where I got my phone on do not disturb most of the day, right? And if you become better at just planning on when you are available, I don't know. Pace says it really well. It's like if you're just always available, people have a different view of you versus if you are not always available, but you still are helpful, right? Like I
Right.
think he does a good blend of that, and that's what I try to do. Is like, hey, I want to be able to be there and help people, but also there's going to be times where I'm not. Then I'm going to be all in on my wife or family or kids.
No, that's great. That's perfect. You got to be able to separate them, and I think that you're doing a great job of that. It is hard. I know I don't have any kids, but I do have a significant other, my girlfriend here all the time. That it's hard, right? Like you'll get a call, and then you're like, oh, I gotta comp this property real quick, or I gotta do this, and it's separating that and putting the phone down and leaving it down is something I'm still struggling with. So I commend you for that, man. That is a great way to handle it. But one thing big question I had for you. We're gonna do what Pace says to do. We're gonna envision like 5 years ahead. So we're at the year five owners club immersion, wherever the heck that might be down the road. What does that look like? You're standing on the top of your Mount Everest. I think 100 families are gonna crush that, by the way. So what do you think that looks like after that 5 year period?
Yeah, man, I'm just excited to be able to. And I'm moving toward it a little bit more each year. Like one biggest thing was just having a COO that could run operations, and I guess what I envision then is like I've got My businesses are running themselves. Even my capital raising business can run itself without me. My direct to seller business, my fix and flip, my property management, right? And who knows what other kind of businesses come into the mix at that point. But I'm really looking forward to in 5 years having other people that manage that, and I'm just have dedicated time where I get to oversee the high level stuff and really just get to work in my zone of genius, right? I've learned this from a lot of mentors is like you got to be spending your time in your zone of genius. So I'm excited about the day that I can not still be pushing all the buttons, and I've come a long way, and there's still a lot of involvement I still have in the company, which is great. I mean, it's how it's got to be when you're first starting. But I'm looking forward to that. And then yeah, just being able to like do whatever I like. I don't know, this is kind of cliche too, but be able to
Yeah,
do what I
it's all
want
good.
when I want with who I want. Like being able to do that. I love traveling. I want to be able to like just go spend whatever I want, go experience whatever I want with my kids and the family. And yeah, that's my biggest thing. And I'm hoping it's not 5 years, it's sooner than that. But being able to
Right.
have that freedom and being able to have the businesses and the income to support it, that's the biggest thing I'm pushing toward.
Yeah, buying back that time, exactly like Dan Martell and countless other books talk about. So you're on the right track, brother, and I know it's gonna happen, and we're gonna be able to be at the top of the summit with you, just celebrating. Which hopefully, like you said, won't take 5 years. Should be quicker. But
Mhm.
is that your main focus right now? Is towards the capital, like the Bighorn Capital Fund, to grow that, so that way your other businesses then continue to scale that way too?
Yeah, for sure. And as of late, like, man, just being as I spent a lot of time with our YouTube channel and content and being really consistent and I'm really excited. Well, a couple things. So I'm excited to do like more speaking engagements. I love like being able to give keynotes, and I'm really looking forward to the day where I get to travel and get to go speak and help more people on a bigger scale, right? Like social media is a great way to do it, but I love being in person because I've always enjoyed nothing. I don't love it. I love nothing better than being like in a at an event, listening to a speaker and like just, I mean, yeah, it's just gives me so
That
much energy.
inspiration,
Yeah,
yeah, I feel
yeah,
that. Like squat up whenever they were talking to us about Owners Club. Halfway through the pitch, I'm up and out of my chair in the back of the room.
yeah. Absolutely, man. Yeah, so I'm excited to be able to do that for other people, inspire them. So I'm really excited to do that. And then and as I've done that, and again, not necessarily speaking on the biggest stages right now, but being a leader in sub two to where now like I have students bringing me deals across the country because I've just leaned in and helped a ton of people. We have a weekly Zoom called Problems to Profits, and we really just have students. We've encouraged students to bring deals where they're stuck on because there's so many people. So now we're kind of talking about that active group. I talk about again the completely passive, the people who want to buy turnkey rentals, and then the people who want to do deals, right? And being able to help them close has been a really cool. It's been so cool because actually heading into 2025, we're now our goal is to do 100 deals this year. So we're going to do probably around 60 total this year, roughly. We'll see, give or take. But I want to do almost more than, well, yeah, about double that next year. But the way we're going to do it is we're going to start to be able to do it nationwide because now I have students bringing me deals in Houston where I live, but I actually don't typically invest. San Antonio, Dallas, Utah, like not doing a whole lot in California or New York, but like all these other landlord and or pro like business states, like getting deal flow for there. So I'm excited to be able to like literally almost double our deal flow and do more transactions. And I know if I can, because I've been able to get pretty consistent deal flow from Wyoming, but it's only so big, right? And you got to be able to, I still want to be able to scale. And so back to answer your question, like I want to continue to have the deal flow be very predictable and continue to have the capital raising very predictable, right? And continue to like deliver returns to our investors because as you probably know, as you deliver returns and give more experience there, then you don't have to do as much marketing for the fund. It just
Right.
sells itself. So
Exactly. People
I'm
just
excited
start
for.
coming to you at that point.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so and we're getting there. It's getting way easier over. I mean, 2 or 3 years ago, before we really started doing much content, we're just raising money on one-offs. It was a much longer process and conversation to get somebody comfortable investing versus now with a longer track record and more people who've made money with us and more referrals. It's just made it a lot easier.
Privy is the best real estate comping software that exists. You guys have to check out Privy. They're going to be able to make all the numbers make sense, and your comparables are always going to be on point. Comment the word start and get started comping like a pro today.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those people who have that engineering, mind and background, who are stuck in that analysis paralysis mode, where would you say is the best advice for them to first steps, I guess, into real estate investing?
Yeah, I mean, depending on your personality type, you really just got to take action. And action could mean you go and buy a property and or fix it, flip a house, or do something, and or it could just mean you don't want to learn it all. You just want to be passive, but and honestly, I would do this either way, whether you want to be active or passive. Go find somebody who's doing it, because if you try to figure it all out, you're going to have analysis paralysis. You are going to inevitably screw up, right? And you're going to lose money in some ways. Hopefully, you buy it, you do it good enough to where you don't, or you're going to lose money in some ways. Hopefully, it still stays net positive, right? But the
Yeah,
cheat code is go find somebody who's already doing it, and don't take as much of the first deal, right? You're not going to hit a home run, but maybe you ensure that you're going to hit a single and go do it with somebody else. And because then at least you're starting action, because you might need to only do one deal with somebody and then you're ready to do the next one by yourself. Or maybe you want to do a couple, or maybe you create an awesome partnership to where you're like, I love this. I could keep doing what I love most, and I get to just be partially involved as a lender or whatever your role is in a partnership or whatever you're needing help with. Like, and then you get started that way.
yeah, yeah. So there's no one size fits all to this, folks. Casey said it perfectly right there. There's plenty of different masterminds, groups, ways to get into real estate that you just have to take the first steps. One day is not what you want to do. Day one is what you want. You could change your mindset from one day to day one and just start doing it. A lot of things will start happening. A lot of great things will show up in your life. And yeah, like Casey said, you may lose some money. It's investing. It's not everything is a safe, like risk free out here. You got to take some risk, take some action, and make it happen. But Casey, I appreciate you being here today, brother. Before we get out of here and let you get onto your family life and day, probably get back to those 4 kids, where can the people find you if they want to send you any deals or check out your content?
Yeah, absolutely. You get whatever social media channel people use, you can find me there. Just type in my name, Casey Gregerson. Just make sure you spell it with all E's, spell it right, and you'll find me. I'm the only Casey Gregerson, at least at this point, online. And yeah, so find me there. And then really, if you guys, I mentioned the passive investing playbook. So you could just go to caseygregerson.com, and that's going to have our website. On that, you can get free access to our passive. And actually, I don't know how much I explained it, but our passive investing playbook is basically like, I wanted to download the 14, almost 15 years that I've been investing in real estate, like all the lessons I've learned, and also have it kind of be a blueprint for people. Like the first thing, if somebody goes into there, I have this first Zoom that's like, hey, what is your avatar, right? Are you going to be active or passive or somewhere in between, right? So figure that out first, and then here are the strategies. Here's the path you should now take. So as part of helping 100 people, the first step is, or 100 families achieve financial freedom. The first step is go to our website, caseygregerson.com, and download that playbook for free, and just start leaning in, diving in to that, right? So if you hear anything, go check that out, and then from that website, you can find me on YouTube or Instagram, whatever platform you're using. Yeah, and I really encourage people to go and reach out and send messages to me. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to collaborate on deals. I'd love to have you invest in our fund, or if you just like, hey, I got the question. I still to this day, I get a lot of people that reach out like, hey, Casey, I've seen you're doing a lot of stuff because they've been watching me on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook. They're like, what would you do in this situation, right? Or what do you think about this? And that's fun when I get to help those people.
Oh yeah, who doesn't love that? But Casey, I appreciate you, brother. You've been an absolute blessing to have on here, man. Great insights, and we're definitely gonna have you back on whenever Paul's not getting 2 root canals done, so that way he can get his questions he wanted to ask you. But I appreciate you, brother. Any one last thing you want to leave the audience today with that really gets them inspired to start taking action today?
Yeah. I mean, this is part of my keynote and it's a lot longer, but I'll summarize it in that anybody can buy real estate. I bought my first one in college, right? Without a full-time job. I was a college kid living off a stipend. I bought a house for my son who's 11, right? And I did it with creative finance, and I did it with no money down, the way I structured it, right? My last house, I had left my W-2 job and no longer had a W-2 income, right? I was working off a real estate income, and no bank wants to lend off that, right? Because you write everything off and you don't show any income, and intentionally, right? Because of to defer your taxes. But in all those situations, I was able to still buy real estate. So I always encourage people, like, it's never too early, right? And never too late, but there's always a way to do it. So figure out, even if you got a partner, whatever it is, or just hit me up and send me a message. Be like, hey, I got this situation. I don't feel like I could buy a real estate property or a rental property or a fix and flip. Everybody can do it. So that's what I would say is, like, don't make any excuses. And if you have one, reach out and I'll help you.
I love it. Folks, that's it for us here on The Wire today. Casey, thank you, my friend. And don't forget, before we get out of here, like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you want to have Casey talk about next time he's on here. But I appreciate you, brother, and can't wait to see you at Squat Up if that's the earliest I get to see you. But hopefully sooner than that.
Heck yeah, we'll be there.
All right, y'all. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next week.